that you want to join us on. And I'll give you a little sneak preview at the end of this session on a few that we have in the works. So in terms of today, before I introduce our presenters, I just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items. I know all of you are probably very familiar with these virtual platforms for hosting meetings, but I just wanted to, for those of you that may not have used Zoom before, I wanted to let you know that this session is being recorded, and we will plan to record all of our webinars just so that people that aren't able to make it on the date can access it on demand. As I think you all know, you're muted. That's just to make sure that we have a good quality of audio for everyone. So to ask a question, it's similar in most platforms, but just in terms of Zoom, you can see the little box that's at the bottom of your screen if you hover your cursor over, and almost dead middle is a chat box. So if you have any questions or comments, you can just put them in the chat box, and we're going to get to them after the end of our two presentations. So as I mentioned earlier, we plan to get you out of here right at 12. We want to wrap up on time. But in the event, we have allowed a lot of time for questions, but in the event that we get a lot and it looks like we're going to run over, we're copying the chat box, and we'll make sure that we get you written answers to your questions. We'll send them out by email. So not to worry, everybody's question will get answered. So in terms of our presenters, I did mention that this is the first webinar in our series, but this is actually the third time that NSFM has hosted a webinar with the province and with FCM. And it's both previous times it's been around the announcement of funding through FCM. And Jennifer Duncan, she's with the province of Nova Scotia with the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing. This is actually her third time presenting with us. Yeah, she presented the first time, I think it was in June of 2017, just after FCM had announced the first opening of its grants program for municipalities. She was only 2 weeks on the job, but she did a stellar presentation for us. She came back in September, I think, of 2018, when that pocket of funding from FCM was very close to being empty. And she presented then again. So welcome back, Jennifer. She's going to give us an overview of the Provincial Asset Management Program. And new with us today is Amon Ugusu, and she's the Manager of Grants for Municipalities with FCM through their Municipal Asset Management Program. So she's going to give us an overview of what's happening with the MAMP Municipal Grants Funding Program. And she's got there's a few changes to this program over the last grant offering. So it favors smaller municipalities and those municipalities that want to work together. So some more details about that very shortly. So just in terms of an agenda, so Jennifer's going to go first. She'll give us that high-level overview of what the Nova Scotia Asset Management Program is about and what the province is offering in terms of resources, some that are already created and some that are in the works. And then she'll be followed by Amon, who'll give us that overview of the grants for municipalities through MAMP. Then we'll open the floor up to questions via our chat box. And then I'm just going to wrap up with one quick slide. I'll give you a preview of an upcoming resource that we have, and also a sneak preview to some of the webinars that we have in the works for you coming up very soon. And then we'll wrap up at 12. So I am going to stop sharing my screen, see how Jennifer and I can transition here. And I'm going to give the virtual floor over to Jennifer. I can see that she's sharing her screen.
Perfect.
Isn't it exciting when it works?
It is. So that's great. Everybody can see my screen. That's fantastic. Just to get things started off, I just wanted to thank the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities for putting this webinar together. Debbie has always been a strong advocate in terms of helping as a part of our working group, but also helping us get messaging out in relation to our Nova Scotia Asset Management Program. So thank you very much. We're really happy to be here. As Debbie mentioned, my name is Jennifer Duncan, and I'm here on behalf of the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So to begin, I understand that our callers and participants in the webinar today have varied background in terms of experience with asset management. So I just wanted to take a quick minute and just highlight what asset management is versus what it's not. So asset management isn't inventory and data collection on its own. It's not a software solution. It's not a standalone plan. It's also not just participation in cohorts all of these components are valuable to the asset management process, but any of you who hear me speak of asset management from the cultural aspect. What it really is a coming together of different disciplines to look at physical assets with the objective of providing required levels of service in a cost-effective manner. And I know when I started my professional journey into asset management, I attended a Canadian Network of Asset Managers conference, and I found how they distilled the concepts of asset management very tangible. They framed the concepts in terms of sustainable service delivery. So I just wanted to provide a quick overview of those components for a little more context for those of you who may find it to be valuable. So these are the 4 key principles. The first being inventory. So that's looking at the physical assets that we own, where they are, and their overall worth. Condition is another very important piece of the puzzle, looking at what condition those assets are in. Bringing risk into the fold of asset management is also very important. So looking at what are our vulnerabilities in terms of our infrastructure, as well as the potential consequences, possible consequences of those vulnerabilities, and then level of service. So this is when we start thinking about what are the public's expectations, what is our current regulatory environment, and distilling things down in terms of what we need versus what we want, which can be challenging in our day-to-day lives, and nothing is different in terms of the asset management concepts. In terms of some benefits of asset management, I just wanted to highlight the long-term aspects of integrating asset management into our operations and organizations. Really what it does is it provides a benefit of long-term thinking, whether that being from the planning perspective, integrating risk into our consideration of how we look at our physical assets, as well as better informing our capital planning. And this little equation I have at the bottom of the screen actually translates well to with some of the FCM materials that are out there. And what it really breaks down to is when we look at considerations of performance, we bring cost into consideration, as well as risk, it really puts us in a position to really effectively manage service expectations in our communities a little better. For those of you who are getting started with asset management, the key here is to not panic. It's a long-term journey, and this is to be expected. So one of the things that happens, we have a lot of really exciting funding opportunities and initiatives that are going on with asset management. And you hear me say we definitely don't want to hold our municipalities back. We want to make sure that we're thoughtful in terms of how we really engage that funding so we can maximize the benefit of it. So sometimes in Nova Scotia, we will have very well-intentioned third-party service providers come in and provide messaging that may be consistent with provinces that have more regulated requirements around asset management. In Nova Scotia, we have a voluntary approach to asset management, and the reason for that is we have the long-term vision in mind. We're really looking to work with our municipalities to put you in a position of developing really solid plans. So in terms of your any regulated requirements, we don't have any specifically in terms of asset management. Your reporting requirements are still consistent with the submission of your annual expenditure reports and your capital investment plans through our gas tax agreements. So those are staying consistent right now. I should flag that asset management is also an eligible criteria within the gas tax framework as well. So just something to keep in mind. So as our program continues to evolve, we may consider putting more specific requirements in relation to asset management as we continue to move down the road. But since our program and our collaboration with our municipalities is still growing and we're all at different stages in terms of our asset management readiness, we don't have any plans to make any changes at this point in time. So in the event you are contacted by a well-intentioned third-party service provider or with messaging that is a little bit different than what I'm talking about today, feel free to reach out at any point, and I'd be more than happy to have those conversations with you. In terms of how to get started, since asset management is really looking at it from an integration perspective, integrating it into our daily work as opposed to seeing it as something we kind of do at the side of the desk, the best places to start are actually within our municipalities and within our organizations. So it's good to take a look at the current state of asset management practices you may have in municipalities, talking to your colleagues, your management teams, and your counselors, seeing if you already have any roles and responsibilities related to asset management in place. And I've provided 2 examples here of guidance materials. One is the FCM readiness scale, and the other is the CNAM competency framework. And I know Eamon in her presentation, she provides a comprehensive summary with additional materials in terms of how to get started, which is fantastic. I wanted to flag these materials as guidance materials. So it's very important that if you elect to use these materials, that you do so in association with your municipal needs. Some of our municipalities that I would say are leading the charge with their asset management journey have provided me feedback that they're still working through completing some of those earlier phases of the FCM readiness scale. And that's good because they're working at a pace based on the culture that they have within their municipality. So it's not a race. These are guidance materials that can provide a lot of value, but keep in mind the needs of your municipalities when you use them. The CNAM competency framework is also very recent. It highlights some of the roles and responsibilities related to asset management. It's valuable for context, but I think understanding roles and responsibilities across the asset management practice is also emerging as well. So if you look at these resources, do not feel like you have to have all of the roles and responsibilities in place right now. They're there to guide you in terms of the growth of your programming internally. So having said that, I wanted to speak to our elected officials and just highlight the important role that you play in terms of creating a culture of asset management within your municipalities. You are really truly the leaders of asset management in terms of effective implementation. And the reason why I wanted to highlight this is that a collaborative approach, so when we have a commitment from council, management, and staff, that really provides better assurance for long-term success of asset management planning. In Nova Scotia, we're very lucky to have a number of municipalities that have dedicated council that are really dedicated to bringing the asset management agenda into their fold. Our working group also has great elected official representation. Ivan Doncaster, I think, has been a member on the working group since day one and provides perspective, his perspective to the working group in terms of our planning, which has been hugely valuable. I just wanted to highlight that because as our growth in terms of incorporating asset management continues to grow, we tend to have a lot of staff that are really engaged with asset management, which is absolutely fantastic. Staff buy-in, in addition to council and management, is integral to moving asset management forward. However, if we get in a situation where asset management issues tend to float down just to a couple of individuals who may have a lot of other initiatives on their plate, or may not have the authority to make decisions, we run the risk of resource fatigue for those resources, but also within our organizations and municipalities. You almost get caught in the never-ending asset management loop in some cases. So really bringing that cultural focus into play is hugely valuable. And as I mentioned, a lot of our municipalities in Nova Scotia already have the works underway in this regard. For our municipalities who've probably seen me talk for the last couple of years, we received this feedback. It's great, Jennifer. We love hearing from you, but we're really ready for more action. And when I heard this feedback, it really made a lot of sense. So on the next slide, I'm going to go and provide an overview of our program progression to date, so some of the actions that we've been completing. But you will notice that a lot of those actions were what I call operational in nature. So through our working group, the last couple of years, we've been really focused on creating the data collection tools and resources for our municipalities, as well as getting the infrastructure registry for municipal assets up and running for your use. So because these initiatives were new across the board, we had been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, so I can understand a lot of the messaging may have seemed a little bit repetitive, but I'm really excited to talk to you today about some of the outcomes and next steps associated with this work as well. So this is the timeline of what we've been working on to date. So our program started with the Infrastructure Asset Management Working Group. I believe most of you on the call are familiar with the composition of this group, but I just wanted to flag that it includes your municipal counterparts, elected officials, CAOs, finance staff, public works members. The Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities is also a member of our working group, in addition to the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And we've really moved the composition of the working group, really focused on municipal participation, because it's very important that the voice and the direction of the group comes from the municipal perspective. And this past year, we have some great new members who have joined the team, who have already added value in the short time we've been together. So things are going really great in that regard. And this is the group that comes together to set the direction of our overall program. As I mentioned, since that time, we've been working on the completion of data collection tools and resources. So that's standard operating procedure guidance, condition assessment guidance for linear infrastructure, your water, your sewer, your active transportation, and roads. We've been lucky enough to have a great partnership with the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, who has helped us conduct workshops related to those data collection tools and resources, and have also offered online webinars. We've shared those tools and resources province-wide upon request, provided interim technical support for the municipalities that requested it. I would say our biggest learning to date probably came from our most recent pilot exercise, phase 2. And you probably remember some of our earlier messaging. Really, we were saying, let the province do some of the heavy lifting for you early on. And I think the learning that we got from this pilot exercise that we've integrated into our future work plan, I'm really glad we did. We learned a lot in relation to procurement, how third parties view and interpret data collection, some of our capacity issues at the province as well as our municipalities. So we had a lot of valuable lessons that we've brought forward in relation to that pilot. More recently, we have completed the first phase of the Infrastructure Registry for Municipal Asset System. So that's a system that is also provincially funded. We built it on our provincial technical platform, using provincial IT and geomatics resources. So for municipalities that use the provincial tools and resources, you can store and map that information within this provincial registry. And more recently, we completed a program refresh exercise. So we came together as a working group to reset our understanding of the culture of asset management in Nova Scotia. And many of you on the call completed that survey for us this past winter, so thank you very much. And we also have technical supports in place for the Infrastructure Registry for Municipal Assets. So based on the feedback that we've received, we now have a dedicated developer and GIS analyst available to our municipalities to assist with the use of that system. So in terms of our program refresh, I just wanted to recap some of the points that we heard from our municipal clients, and this helped inform our path forward. We actually took the FCM readiness scale and we distilled it down and consolidated a little bit into abbreviated categories just to get a feel for what was working well and what we could work on. What we've worked on, I've qualified as speed bumps, you'll notice, because they're not stopping our progress, but they're slowing us down a little bit. And these are the pieces that we looked at as a working group to really refine our planning for this year. So what's been on track is our municipalities have approaches for measuring asset in place for service performance. We're looking at evaluation of our asset priorities, and levels of services are often defined. In terms of some of the things we can work on moving forward is that some of our approaches for measuring assets or service performance have been informal, Although levels of services have been reviewed, sometimes they're not often being reviewed with council. We have some more room to do in terms of the risk management piece. And a lot of our municipalities flagged inaccurate data and third-party reliance as a potential speed bump. I actually think the inaccurate data piece could actually flow over onto the on-track item, because knowing that you have inaccurate data is half the battle. So this actually could go in the pro column. In terms of policy and governance, there's a lot of asset management knowledge sharing happening in our municipalities. Representation is happening in terms of asset management teams, and our councils are aware that resources need to be dedicated to asset management. Things we can work on is policies that are developed, having them formally endorsed by senior management and council, and clarifying asset management roles and responsibilities. And this piece I find is emerging within the industry, as I mentioned. And this is something that no matter what level of government, whether you're in the public or private sector, we're all working on clarification in this regard. And the CNAM competency framework is a good place to start. In relation to communication and knowledge sharing, a lot of our municipalities have identified asset management benefits that support their municipal objectives, which is absolutely fantastic. Things we need to work on is identification of asset management champions within our municipalities, role appropriate training, and formalizing management's role in training. So a lot of times training initiatives are being driven by staff, so having that collaboration between management and staff to really better ensure role appropriate training is something we can work on. So we took all of that feedback, and this was another category within the survey itself, but as a working group, we came together this past winter, distilled all the field feedback we heard, and really thought about what we can do for our work plan to support our municipalities. And that was distilled down into looking at why some of our municipalities aren't currently using existing tools and resources, look to improve our training and engagement initiatives, as well as expand upon our current tools and resources as well. And I put the example of building assets on this slide. And this all translates into what we can do to help you. So the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing, in collaboration with the Nova Scotia Infrastructure Asset Management Working Group, our work plan has been developed on those key factors. So if you're looking for assistance, we're in a position to support you with council training and presentations. As you will see on our next slide, we're working together as a working group to put together a guidance framework in terms of decreasing some of the barriers in place in relation to policy development. In terms of inventory and data collection, as I mentioned earlier, we learned a lot through the engagements that we've had with our pilot exercises. So we're in a position to assist you with providing templates for RFPs, helping you create RFPs, as well as sitting on evaluation committees for those RFPs. We can also share with you our existing data collection tools and resources. And we can also offer you technical support for the use of the infrastructure registry for municipal asset system. So this is I just wanted to give you a snapshot. You can feel free to reach out to me at any point if you're struggling in any other areas with asset management. So in terms of upcoming collaboration opportunities, we are currently looking for municipal mentors and mentees to support the creation of a policy development networks and workshops. We're also looking for municipalities that may be interested in participating in a futures buildings-based pilot exercise. And our infrastructure registry for municipal assets team will be reaching out to our municipalities in the coming weeks with a technical survey. And the purpose of that is we are really looking to refine our technical support plan for our municipal clients, and the information that they collect from this will be integral to the development and informing the support that you need. If any questions, comments, or requests for more information come up, here is my contact information. As Debbie mentioned, we're going to have a Q&A at the end of this session. But if any of you are like me and think of the perfect question after the webinar ends, I'm sure between Debbie and I, we can coordinate to answer any remaining questions you have. So that's it for me. At this point, I think I'm going to stop sharing and hand the floor over to Imon from FCM.
Oh, great. Thank you, Jennifer. That was great. I think I mentioned earlier, I hope I mentioned that we will make the presentations available to folks. So you'll have Jennifer and Imon's contact information. And just as one last ditch effort, I'll flash, that'll be the last slide I flash up when we're all done today too. So yeah, and you can always reach out to me if for some reason you don't have those or you need them. So yeah, so Imon, we'll turn it over to you whenever you're ready.
Okay. I'm ready. Thank you, Debbie.
Great, thank you.
Just a moment. I don't think I'm in sharing mode. Just a moment, sorry.
No problem.
Okay, share my screen. Okay.
Perfect.
All right, so here we go. So my name is Imon, and I'm the manager for Grants for Municipalities. So my title is Manager Funding, but I'm the manager for Grants for Municipalities pillar of the program, of the Municipal Asset Management Program, in short, MAP. So you will probably hear me say MAP a lot, so I'm talking about the program. So the program was officially started in 2016, and it was supposed to be a 5-year program with a $50 million envelope. And we were a big victim of our success because we end up about 2 years in, we end up running out of basically subscribing the full amount available for municipalities, and we had to stop accepting new applications. And thankfully, in the federal budget 2019, we received an additional $60 million from the government, and the program was extended until 2024. So thankfully, we got that additional money in, and we'll be able to double the reach of the programs. To date, we have about almost 700 projects in the pipeline, and hopefully by the end of the program, we'll have the opportunity to double that reach with the additional $60 million. So now the program is an 8-year program and $110 million envelope. So the program is divided into, you can see 3 here, but it's actually kind of 2. So awareness building and technical assistance are part of the pillar that we call capacity building pillar. So that pillar works with partner organizations throughout the country to provide specific technical assistance to municipalities or all kind of awareness building activities. So it can be a workshop for elected officials, for example, or training, basic training in asset management for staff, for municipal staff. And my pillar, the Grants for Municipalities pillar, provide grants directly to municipalities to work on various aspects of asset management. So for the capacity building side of the program, so this gives you an idea of some of the partners we have all over the country. So some are provincial based and some are national. So the Canadian Network of Asset Managers, for example, is a national based organization. NSFM, who's hosting the webinar today, is provincial, obviously. So we have to date, we have or have had about 34 partners, organizations all over the country. So the focus of this presentation is grants for municipalities, and who can apply for grants with the MAP program. So municipal government, so basically municipalities, so village, cities, counties. So however you define yourself, if you are municipal government, you can apply for funding. Municipal corporations. So what we call municipal corporation will be, for example, sometimes the police service in a municipality will be kind of a separate entity, but relate to the municipality. So those are what we call municipal corporation or municipally owned organizations, and they can apply for funding without the municipality applying for funding. So the municipality could receive funding, and the municipal corporation can receive funding because they will be considered as two separate entities with us. Other organizations delivering municipal service, so not for profit, and if the organization delivers municipal service, they can apply for funding in partnership with the municipality where they deliver the service in. And lastly, indigenous communities all over the country can apply for funding if they have an infrastructure shared service agreement with the municipality. So the type of project that we can provide funding for, we try to keep the reach broad enough to allow municipalities to work on what they need and not necessarily what we want them to work on, because at the end of the day, we are trying to help municipalities and communities throughout the country. So it can be assessment of asset management systems, so the needs in the municipalities, the risk, developing asset management plans, policies, strategies, all kind of data collection activities. So doing a basic inventory of your asset, because a lot of municipalities don't necessarily know what they own. So whether it's the inventory or going a little bit deeper and really collecting data on the state of their assets, so we can provide funding for that. Asset management training and knowledge sharing. So we provide funding. So I provide a little bit a chart that shows the spread of projects that we provide funding for. So the multiple here I will explain. So the multiple, the 60% is basically municipalities working on more than one aspect. So you can have municipalities developing policies while they're also collecting data on their assets, and sometimes providing training to elected officials or municipal staff. So the multiple is definitely in our portfolio I would say the category that the most covered, but it's actually covered all the others, and 60% of our recipients fall into the multiple bracket. So now for the funding and funding ratio. So the maximum grant is still $50,000 per project, and so per municipalities. But what we adjust for this time in the program, we changed the funding ratio for certain types of applicants. So the very, very small municipalities, so if you have a population of 1,000 or under, then you can have the $50,000 can cover 90% of your eligible costs, and then you will have to supply the remaining 10%. If you are in indigenous communities, again, it's 90% of your eligible costs. And if you are a municipal government applying for a collaborative project, so I will extend a little bit more. So in the first iteration of the program, I would say, we noticed that there were some municipalities working together for various reasons. So it would be economies of scale or knowledge sharing, training, and they were working together, but of course submitting their own applications separately. But we realized either by a little key information in application, or sometimes they just tell us that they are really working as a group. And so what we have tried to do this time is not formalize it more, but making sure that we can collect those kind of data, because it's definitely interesting to know when that is happening and to see the benefit for municipalities. And we are also trying to promote collaborative approach. So that's why we changed for collaborative projects, we changed the ratio to 90% of eligible costs and 10% supplied by the municipalities. Each municipality participating in that collaborative project will still need to submit their own individual applications, and there's a section in the application form to indicate which other municipalities they are working on, and to provide a little bit more information on the reason why they decide to go that route instead of just an individual project. The other type of applicants, so municipalities with a population above 1,000 or organizations working in partnership with municipalities. So here, when I say organization, I mean organization other than municipal government working with the municipal government. So not-for-profit, for example, will fall into the 80% of eligible costs in grants, and then 20% from their own source of funding. For the remaining, so 10% or 20% of the eligible costs that should be provided by the municipality, we are very open on where that money is coming from. So you can stack grants. So if you can get a grant from us, if you get a grant from somewhere else, and they allow you to use that amount in conjunction with another grant, then you can use that amount for your portion of the cost of the project. You can use a gas tax fund. We notice that a lot of municipalities use their gas tax money to pay for the remaining portion of the project. And if you want to apply, so I would direct you to our website, so fcm.ca, and you have a number of documents that you need to download. So you have the application guide, and I would say it's extremely important to read the application guide because a lot of these answers to your question are in the application guide. Of course, if you don't find the answer, you can always contact us. But I would say download the guide and read the guide. It will help you a lot in the application process. The application form is a fillable PDF. The asset management readiness scale is a printable PDF. And something new this time is the asset management readiness scale assessment tool. It's an Excel document that we have created to clarify and make it easy for municipalities or whoever decides to use it to use the readiness scale and provide the information for the readiness scale. And that tool hopefully is a tool that will live outside of the application process. So even if you decide not to submit an application with us, you can always download the readiness scale and the assessment tool, and you can use it to plan your asset management journey in your municipality without applying for funding with FCM. So it's a tool that we want to not completely separate, but we want a tool that is usable without having to submit an application. And we wanted to make it easier for municipalities to fill out the readiness scale, because the previous version is a printable PDF, and municipalities sometimes had to print it and then write on the readiness scale. So now we have an Excel document where you can provide all the information. So that assessment tool has to be submitted with the application form, because in the application form, there are sections related to the readiness scale. So for municipalities to provide their states, basically, when it comes to asset management, and those sections have been moved to the assessment tool. So you will still need to submit the assessment tool along with the application form. The work plan and budget is pretty much the same as it was previously. So that's where you will give us an idea of the steps to implement the activities and also the cost for the project. And of course, we have a template for the resolution, and we also have a template for support letters. So we have two types of support letters. So the support letters, if it's an organization, like I said, a not-for-profit or a municipally-owned corporation applying with a municipality. So we have a template support letter for that. And we also have what we call a commitment letter. So if you are submitting with a collaborative approach, you will need to submit a commitment letter signed by all the municipalities participating in that project. So we draft a template for that. If you need a Word version of the template, we couldn't put the Word version on the website, but you can always reach out to us, and we can provide a Word version that you can play with to prepare your own commitment letter. And whether you apply for funding or not, we have a lot of asset management resources available. They are all on our website, so fcm.ca. If you go under the MAP program, there's a section for asset management resources. And we have two types of resources. So the resources that were created by MAP and by FCM. So you have the building blocks of asset management, for example, which can explain how to reach level 1 for each of the 5 competencies. Because again, that's something we noticed in our applicants. A lot of them are still at the early stages of asset management, and the building blocks of asset management can help them plan what they need to do to reach level 1. We have the MRS, of course. Like I said, it's a tool that can live outside of MAP. And we also have a lot of knowledge products that were created by all the various partners. So the 34 partners that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So a lot of them have created different tools that can be useful. In red here, you have the Canadian Network of Asset Managers booklet. It's Asset Management 101. And I actually attend the training that is attached to that booklet. So it's a good tool to understand what is asset management and what asset management can do for your community. And so I would say to stay in contact and to really receive all the latest updates, whether it's regarding the funding from the Grants for Municipality pillar of the program, training available from all of our various partners. I would say subscribe to our newsletter, FCM Connect, and that's the best way to receive the information on time when it's available. And lastly, if you have any question, of course, I know Debbie has my information and you will see them shortly, but you can also reach out to our outreach officer, either by email or call them to ask some question regarding your application. And you can always contact me, of course. You will have my personal information. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Eamon, and thank you, Jennifer. Lots of information and yeah, lots of resources available, not just funding, but lots of resources at the provincial level and national level through FCM as well. So yeah, so
at the moment I need to sharing. Okay, yeah, no, go ahead. Okay, here we go. Sorry.
Thanks, Eamon. No, that's great. So I do see, I think actually I did see a question. I think it's disappeared. Judy, can you see any questions?
Yeah, I can. So it's McKenzie, and to Jennifer, it says, hi, Jennifer, would you suggest the IRMA support be applicable to help us convert current data into the provincial framework?
Definitely, Earl. So any questions that you have in relation to the integration of the IRMA system, we're more than willing to work with you on that in terms of integration. So you can either reach out to me directly after the webinar and we can set something up with our IRMA team, if that sounds good to you.
Thanks,
I think he's on mute, so he only has chat opportunity, but yes, that is an opportunity.
Thank you, Jennifer.
There you go.
Okay.
That's great. Any other questions for either Jennifer or Eamon about funding or provincial resources? You can chat them, write them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself.
There's a lot of information packed into today.
Yeah.
I want to add, we're as a municipality of Argyle, we're using the IRMA platform, and it's a wonderful tool. We're sharing some information with our council, and it's helpful to prepare the information for council. So just want to say it's a great tool.
Thanks, Hans. Argyle was one of our first pilot participants, and they've been really wonderful working with us from that point on. So that's great to hear.
Other questions, comments?
I think the webinar people are like me. They need some time to distill the information and then hit us with the hard-hitting questions.
For sure. So as Jennifer mentioned, I may have mentioned as well, if a question comes up after this session, you're welcome to send it to either me or to Jennifer, and we can definitely get an answer for you. So if there are no further questions, I'm just going to bring up our second last slide, actually, if you just bear with me a second. Here we go. So just wanted to give you just a quick, sorry, I did not share my screen with you as intended. Great. Current slide. Great. So just a quick overview of what we have coming up. So some of you may be aware that through MAMP funding as a partnering organization, NSFM got some funding, I think 2 years ago, to develop an online asset management course. So it's for elected officials. It's the basics of online asset management. So we applied in the third round and we're successful. So we have some more FCM funding, and we're going to add a climate change chapter to it. So that's in the works right now. So that chapter will look at how do you integrate climate considerations into your overall asset management process. So it is a process to get that chapter going and integrate it into the existing course. So we're looking at a launch later in this year, probably as late as maybe November, early December. So we'll keep you updated. We'll definitely send out a notice. We do have a session coming up, not related to asset management and not actually part of our regular webinar series, but I just thought I'd give a bit of a shout out. It was in our Monday memo the last 2 weeks, but next Thursday, so June 11th at 11 a.m. via Zoom, we're doing a virtual active transportation town hall meeting. So that one is being chaired by you and as NSFM's AT chair, Gord Tate. He's with the District of Chester. So it's going to be a bit of an open conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about how active transportation may have been impacted by COVID-19. So what are some opportunities, some challenges, and how can we move forward in a very positive way? So feel free to join us for that if you have an interest in active transportation. And again, that link was in our last 2 Monday memos, and I'm more than happy to send that to you if anyone's interested. So in terms of our regular webinar series, so 2 weeks from today, we plan to have a webinar for you. We have a couple in the works, and there's a good possibility that we may be offering an e-voting for elected officials, but that hasn't been confirmed. I know Judy's working on that, but I just wanted to give you a little heads up. We'll definitely be doing an e-voting for elected officials. We have some other municipal election topics that we hope to offer you as well, because that is an important topic right now for everyone. And we do know for sure that we will have somebody from the Canada Infrastructure Bank to talk about offerings that they have around infrastructure, and it's a great program. So that one's coming up maybe a bit later in the summer, maybe as late as early fall.
If I could just jump in there for 1 second, Debbie, I did actually finally have confirmation on the e-voting. It will be on June 18th at 11, and we will be sending that out in the Monday memo this coming Monday, and we'll post it up on our website. We'll do a couple of reminders as well. So thanks for mentioning that, Deb, and we're hoping to get a good turnout for that one. It went over very well with the AMANS group. Yeah. So thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Judy. So that's 2 weeks from today, same time. So if there aren't any further questions, I don't think there are. Jude, you can.
Nope, we're good. Nothing in the chat.
So thank you everyone for joining us, for taking time out of your busy schedules. We know everybody has lots on the go. A special thank you to Jennifer, third time presenting with us. A special thank you as well to Amon, her first time. So thanks for sharing all that information. Thanks to Judy for hosting as well, keeping an eye on the chat box and everything. So please do reach out. If you have kind of a general question about resources, you can reach out to me. Anything kind of provincially related, Jennifer's happy to help, and she has lots of support there from a provincial level. And of course, anything kind of from a more national level, I guess Amon has her finger on the pulse in terms of what's happening around the country with asset management. And FCM has produced tons of great resources too. So please don't be shy. I will mention again this pocket, or this pot of funding, when it was announced back in 2017. I think it took about maybe 14 months to dry up. So time is of the essence. We do have some time, but don't wait too long. So if you have a project idea that you're thinking about and you want to run it by any of us, please do. And we're happy to provide you with any support we can to get your applications and your projects moving along in terms of asset management for funding and just general asset management initiatives. So yeah, so thank you everyone. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you maybe next week, maybe in 2 weeks as part of our regular webinar series. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.